Hello and welcome to today's webinar for the newest Just Planet release. In this product update, we're mainly focusing on the resource usage level, a feature that we have been in the works for the last 2 releases, and now I'm finally able and I'm really happy to be able to share this with you. Some preliminary information. This is a GoToWebinar. That means all attendees are automatically muted to optimize the quality of audio and reduce the risk of any background noises. If you do have a question, please ask this via the webinar chat box or the questionnaire tool, and I will try to get to all the questions that are being asked before the end of this. Who am I? As always, I am Jan Vierguts, the development lead for Just Planet. And quick reminder, this is being recorded and will be made available at a later point. Now, what is resource usage? The resource usage as we envision it is a part of a resource group constraints for tasks. Quick reminder, resource group constraints are this task needs to be done by any resource out of this group. And what the resource usage now adds is it sets or gives you the opportunity to set how much of a given resource's focus this task actually occupies. And this can be a value between 0.01 and 1 and shows really how much is actually being used without using percentages, because that leaves us open to further enhancement in the future. Quick example down below. This is taken from the task detail dialog, the only place where you can set the resource usage, and I will show you this later in a live environment. And as we can see here, we have 2 resource group constraints, one for source, and we say if a SAW is taking this task, it needs to be completely focused on this task. It has no specific resource constraints and also no further task constraints, because we want to focus on the resource usage, but those constraint types are all compatible with each other. Now for the SAW operators, we see we only have 0.25. That means that any given operator can operate 4 of this kind of tasks at the same time. Now, why did we go and develop in this? One of the use cases, and the main use case that we can see and heard from our customers, is that we have a machine center with supervision. And supervision in this case does not mean one person overviewing 5 other persons, but 5, 6, 10 machines running and only one person being there, because this operator can take care of all of the machines at the same time, because they don't require the full attention of the operator, but only need specific details. For example, if there is a refill necessary at any given machine. Now, how can we take care of this use case? We set up 2 resource group constraints for this task, one for the machine that is completely focused on that task, and one for the worker that has a reduced resource usage. And if you have tasks that require more significant focus, then you can simply increase the focus necessary for that given task for any given RGC. We will see in a bit how this actually looks, and this is all a bit complicated to just hear, so trust me when I say this is really exciting and can't wait to go into the live environment. But before I do that, let's talk about the second use case that we saw, and that is when you plan with volumes. This is more of a workaround and not the core functionality that we developed here, but we are confident that at least some use cases requiring volumes can be targeted with this. And this focuses more on if you have a resource that can fit a specific volume of something. In my example case here, I'm giving a volume of 200 cubic centimeters. And now let's imagine you have 3 tasks with different volumes that they actually need from your resource. One with 50, one with 100, and one with 150 cubic centimeters. Now, this isn't really that easy to do with the Just Planet that we had, but with this new functionality, you can now simply set the resource usage of any of that given task to be as much, or basically the needed volume divided by the total volume. So in our case, we have 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75 respectively. And as a result of setting it this way, the scheduling engine in the backend immediately notices, okay, this 0.25 and 0.5 task can be scheduled simultaneously. Or it could take the first and the third one, because that also adds up to 1. But the third task, what needs to start afterwards, because it simply doesn't fit. We foresee this as a really useful workaround if you need to work with volumes, but please note that you have to set the resource usage on the tasks themselves. And if you work with volumes that are dependent on the quantities, that is not automatically calculatable. So you have to do that then manually. Also, please note, this functionality, while extremely useful, increases the complexity of your plan. And increased complexity will lead to longer calculations between interactions. So we highly encourage you to only use this for cases that have a significant impact on your throughput. If you don't foresee a significant impact, for example, because you have made out a bottleneck that isn't really a bottleneck because you could do multiple things, then hooray, resource usage is the right method. But if you think, cool, I can go even closer to reality, yes, you can do that, but that will impact performance. So I just want to say, use it with caution. But if you also, what we saw when we looked over our entire calculation changes that we did, what we also noted and then compared that to what we heard from and saw from our onboardings and working with all of our customers, we see that sometimes you guys have really long planning horizons, but actually only plan the next couple of weeks to month. And if you do that, you can increase performance if you simply shorten your planning horizon. Now, what does shortening your planning horizon do? It will allow you, or it will prevent you from planning too far into the future. So if you have a planning horizon of 4 weeks and you have a completely full schedule for the next 4 weeks, any new job that you would add to the plan will not be able to be scheduled because the scheduling engine doesn't look that far ahead. But if you see, okay, I have now basically, I'm as standard, I have 90 weeks into the future, and I really only plan for the next 10, then I suggest lowering that to increase your performance. Now, let's stop just having a theoretical talk about this and take a closer look at what we actually have done. So first, let's take a look at this Excel sheet. It's a standard upload Excel that many of you will have seen before. And I'm just using that to show you that yes, you can upload all of the constraints, all of the resource usage stuff also via the Excel. And in addition to that, this is also, of course, available for both job templates and component templates. In this example here, I've set up a smallish job template called product 1, which has 2 stations or has 3 stations with 2 resource groups assigned to them, so with 2 resource group constraints, and 2 of those even have a reduced usage in the operator resources. So for example, here we see the drills. Empty field means always 1, so this entire functionality defaults to 1 if you don't set anything here. And the drill operators have been put to 0.5, so any drill operator can manage 2 drills at once. Same with the saw operators. They can manage 4 saws at the same time. Now, if we upload this, we'll get fairly standard job view here with all the jobs in that Excel. You see a couple of them are too late, but that's fine for our purposes. Now let's take a quick look at the more interesting part, which will be the resource group view. Now, as you can see on top here, we have the saws, and all of our 5 saws work on one task at a time, just like we had before, because they have a resource level, usage level of 1 for any task. But now let's take a quick look at the SAW operators. As you will notice, there is now an overlap of 4 tasks being run at a time at certain points in time that have been calculated by the scheduling engine in the back end. And that would have been a grave mistake by the engine before, but now is absolutely correct because we have set for the source a resource usage level, for the SAW operators to be precise, as 0.25. So we can handle 4 tasks at once. Same goes down here with the drills. What we will see here, worker 3 is also loaded with 4 tasks at a time. That is because they are also part of the SAW operators. But this shows you that even if you combine different resource usage levels with each other, the engine still is able to handle that, dishes out what it can serve and what it can't. In this case, we see here worker 3 and worker 4 do have sometimes that they need to take care of 2 drilling operations, for example, but they can also take care of 1 drilling and up to 2 SAW operations. And on the drilling specialists, which are here worker 5 and worker 6, we see they can only handle 2 parts at the same time. This is, again, we are really excited about this, and we do think that this will have a great benefit for all of your plans. And this is the major development step that we just made. This required us, and that is why it took 2 sprints to think about this long and hard how to do this. We had to redo a lot of our scheduling, but are really excited about this. We also, on a different note, added a small enhancement regarding the filters. We have now, and the color schemes, to be precise. We've now added a lot of new functionalities to the filters and the color schemes, adding more fields, making it even more easy and possible for you to filter or highlight what you need to see in your plan. Quick reminder on how to set a color scheme. If you go to the settings and see this paintbrush, this will allow you to open your color scheme set. And if I now want to say I want to update the default set, we see the default set here, and we do see this is already updated a bit. This has color as stuff. And if I now go ahead and simply see in here, I can see this customer name field is a custom field, so they are now targetable. The job templates are targetable, so if I select the job template in the product and say, okay, I want this to be, let's say, bright pink for easy viewing, and say okay, and say okay again. This will then in the back end load. As we see, this takes a bit of time, not that much, but I don't have that large of a plan. So again, remember, only use the resource usage where you need it. And if we switch back to understand schedule and select the highlight scheme we just added, we see now a lot of bright pink because we just selected everyone on product 1 to be highlighted as such. And again, we simply wanted to do this because we want you to enable you to even more detailed update your plan in the way you want to see it and have the greatest success with JustPlan. And with this, we'll bring today's presentation to an end. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'll stick around for the next couple of minutes and wait for questions. Otherwise, you are very welcome to directly send an email to me or to support@justplan.com, and we are happy to help you. Otherwise, have a great day. Take care.